Hey guys, Nocturne here, and welcome to what is going to be the beginning of a very long Let's Play series. We're going to be playing Final Fantasy VI from start to finish. This is the Ted Woolsey Uncensored edition of the game. It's a hack where the things that have been censored have been restored, but the script was also translated closer to the Japanese version, but it also kept some of the little things that Ted Woolsey put in, like certain lines are still there and things like that. But here's the story. I'm not going to talk over that. So, in this world, there is no magic at all. It's just completely gone. A war happened, which you'll find out about later, and now this is more like a steampunky Final Fantasy than what the other ones have been. And so, the magic's gone, people are trying to revive magic, and that's basically how it is. So, like I was saying, certain graphics that have been censored have been restored to what they were in the Japanese version. The dialogue's a little bit different. It's closer to the Japanese version than when the game first came out. Because when this game first came out, it was Final Fantasy III, not 6. But I'll get into that in a second. I'm not going to voice act, so you should be able to read the dialogue good enough. I'm pretty sure I left it on long enough. So we've got these Imperial soldiers, and they've got this character with them. They're riding what's called Magitech armor, and they're about to march into a city. And they've got her mind controlled. And while we switch to the opening credits, which is one of the most iconic scenes from the game, I'll talk a little bit more about this Let's Play itself. I am going to do the game from start to finish. Of course, I'm going to beat it. It's not going to be a 100%, but I am going to collect all the espers. I'm not going to collect everybody's blue magic or rages or things like that, just the ones that I want. However, in this game, I'm going to only teach magic to 2 characters. The ones who know magic inherently when the game first starts. Everyone else, I'm just going to use the abilities that they have in order to get through the game. I never played the game that way before. Usually I would just teach every single person magic. And as you'll see, magic is pretty potent in this game. I think it's more potent than in other Final Fantasies because, hey, this world, magic wasn't a thing. And I think that this is my favorite Final Fantasy. I think the music is amazing. The story is really good, which you'll see as this goes on. And it was the last one to come out on the SNES. Because right after this, 7 came out, and that really threw role-playing games into the mainstream. Here, only 3 Final Fantasy games came out. The original one, Final Fantasy IV, which they renamed 2 when it came out on the SNES, and then this one that they renamed 3. The original 2, 3, and 5 didn't come out until way, way later. So, here's the first battle scene. If you've never seen a role-playing game before, I mean, it is possible. These are turn-based, so you pick from a menu what you're going to do, and when your turn pops up, you attack. This has the active time battle, which is basically if you're in a menu not picking anything, you will get attacked because the fight is still going on unless you set the battle command to wait in the menu. In this part, I'm going to have random battles in it, but from part 2 onwards, I'm going to cut all the random battles out. I'm just going to leave fights that are story important or boss fights in. And I'm certainly not going to grind on screen. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see me spin in a circle for an hour or so, gaining levels and just beating up the same enemies over and over again. So, in this first part of the game, we're in Narsh. We're this girl and these 2 Imperial guards, Biggs and Wedge. In Final Fantasy III, Biggs was named Vix for some reason. And as you can see, the 3 of them are pretty much tearing this town apart. There really isn't anything that can stop them. One thing you'll note about this game is poison spells are very effective against a lot of different creatures, especially human-looking ones. That's why you see I'll use Bioblast a lot in this opening thing, because it's all human, basically all human people. The girl's Magitech loadout is a lot more than the other 2. I guess her thing is more advanced. And you can see us gaining levels. That's the main thing of a role-playing game. You kill enemies, you get experience points, you gain levels, and when you gain levels, you get stronger. And that just pops up, and you see the question mark girl. She has magic at the start, so she's one of the characters that I will be teaching magic spells to. The other one we'll see a little bit later. I just think it would be an interesting way to play through the game, because I never did it before. So they're looking at what's called an Esper. And Esper is a creature that knows magic. And they're saying that there's a frozen one in here. See, in part 2, stuff like this will cut out. These like little random fights that get in the way. There's a way later in the game to get rid of random battles completely, but that's not until much later. But I'll definitely be taking advantage of that when it comes up. And you can see the enemy was confused, which means that they were basically just, they'll hit each other. And in this game, confusion is like the worst status effect you can get, because it just messes you up, because your characters will be hitting each other, and a lot of them are pretty powerful. So it just causes a lot of mayhem when a character gets confused. It's really annoying. So those are save points. Those are the most important thing in the game, because if you die, You go back to the last save point, as it explains there. So, one thing you do in this game is if you can't beat something, just keep throwing yourself at it, level up in the area more, gain about like 3 or 4 levels, and then come back and it should be a lot easier. So you get up to this gate here, and you just knock it down. And I take this moment to heal everybody with her magic. And now it's time for the very first boss in the game. The Lightning Whelk Ymir. And there he is. And so they give you a little spiel about, you know, hey, certain enemies are going to have multiple targets when you fight them. You might not want to hit certain parts of it, or something bad will happen. And you'll also see in this fight, sometimes enemies change during the fight, and when they change, you have to adapt your strategies differently. So for now, you just hit this thing in the head. I use that Magitech missile because it causes the most damage. So you just keep hitting it with everything you got, and eventually it's going to make a sound like that, and the head is going to go into the shell. Now, once this happens, do not attack it, because if you attack it, you'll just hit the shell, and they just told you not to do that. So what I do is take this time to heal when it goes into its shell, and just hang on her, so that way when it comes up, you can immediately attack it again with the strongest thing you got. And it doesn't take long to kill this. I mean, it's only the first boss. You don't even really need to level up in order to beat it. And then here, I do a little oopsie, because it goes in, and then I attack, and I immediately start trying to heal, although I heal the wrong people, because you see that counter attack, it pretty much almost killed her in one shot. And so I use Cure Magic on her. I should heal everybody up. And that's pretty much how the course of the battle goes. I'm pretty sure it's almost over. There we go. It's really satisfying when bosses die in this game because that crack sound effect happens and it flashes, and then the boss just disappears. And you don't get experience points from bosses. You get items and something else, which you'll see later. And then there's another annoyance. And I'm keeping random battles in this episode so you can basically see how an average battle plays out. I mean, mostly it's just hitting the A button until everything's dead. Or if you're not leveled enough, sometimes throwing spells or other abilities at them. So, here's the Esper they were looking for. And it seems to be having a reaction to them being there. And something seems to be going wrong. Okay, she moves forward, and something seems to be happening. just gone. Just completely ceased to exist. And same with that one. They are gone, and they are never to be seen again in this game. That was it. And something happens. And she blacks out. And she has a flashback to what happened. Well, not yet. First, she wakes up in a bed, and she talks to this guy. And you get to hear her theme. All the main characters have their own specific theme song in this game. That's the thing that was keeping her mind controlled. So she's free from that now. And because she's free from that, you get to name her. Eventually. Maybe? Oh, there we go. And I'm not going to name them like silly or goofy names or anything like that. I'm just going to keep them at their canon names. So this is Terra, who was called Tina in the Japanese version, but playtesters hated that name because it was such a common name, so they changed it to Terra. So people complain that, oh, her name's supposed to be Tina. No, it's Terra. She has never gone by Tina in anything official that has officially come out ever. So Terra is her name. Period. And she has no idea what the hell's going on. So they gotta get her the hell out of there. But first, you're gonna run over here. Yoink. And take that. All clocks that look like that in this game, check them, because they might have an elixir. And an elixir is a very powerful healing item. It heals your HP and MP to full, no matter what. So those are very good to have on hand. In this cave, there are treasure chests. Do not open them yet. In this game, you'll run into caves where there'll be treasure in them. But if you leave those treasures alone and wait until later, they'll turn into better items. And you would have to look that up in order to know that. Because once you grab a treasure chest, of course, it's empty. It never comes up again. And so you can see in this game, magic is very powerful. I just killed those two enemies in one shot using one spell. So after you run up here, she gets cornered. Falls through the floor. And hits the ground as hard as she can. She tries to get up, but no, it's not happening. She probably just took like a 30-foot drop. She's lucky to be alive. And now she has a flashback. And here's a character we will get to know much later. Oh, are you going to get to know him? I know not many people watch this, but there is a chance that somebody could be watching this that has no idea about this game. It's possible. Please don't spoil the game in the comments or anything like that, even though I know not many people are going to watch this. So this is her torching 50 Magitech soldiers that was alluded to earlier. And he's certainly enjoying himself. And And here is the capital of the Imperial Empire, the Gestalian Empire. And there's the Emperor himself, Gestal. Kind of looks like a Shih Tzu, but he is a guy. He's just a very old guy with very floppy facial hair. And you see those three right there. You'll get to know who they are. The ones behind the Emperor. Yeah, nice salute there. Whatever. So you can see what they're going for with this. I don't think it really needs to be said out loud. So that's the end of the flashback, and it's time to meet another character. We're going to be meeting characters for quite a long time in this game, because there's a lot of them. There's like 12 or something at the end. So we have this guy, who doesn't like to be called a thief. He's the treasure hunter, known as Locke. Yes, he would much rather be called a treasure hunter. But nobody cares, they just call him a thief anyway. So this guy called him because Terra showed up, and they realized that Terra is probably the key to defeating the Empire, because the two of them are part of a underground group that stand against the Empire called the Returners. And there you go. There, it's mentioned right there. And they know that if the Narsh guards grab Terra, that'll be it. They're never going to see her again. They might even just kill her on the spot, not caring that she was mind-controlled or anything like that. So we have our mission, go to Figaro, and we don't have to run to the mines like Terra did. We're just there. And this introduces us to a thing that they do a couple times in the game, where you have to control multiple parties at once. Usually 2 or 3, at most 3. And we get assistance by these little guys. The best characters in the game, the Moogles. And there's a whole squadron of them helping you out. And here's a little tutorial. I let it do the tutorial to talk about how you do this. Yeah, sure. Do you want more information? So you can switch between 3 different groups. And mainly what you're doing is blocking off passages. So I have Locke, he blocks that one. This one blocks the middle. And then this other group of Moogles blocks the end. And now we just wait. Doing this makes sure that nobody reaches Terra, because if they touch Terra, it's game over and you go back to the last time you saved, which is pretty decent amount of time right now. So here's all the Moogles. They attack with all different kinds of weapons. Basically, they give you a preview of all the different kinds of weapons in the game, so they do that as well. And you see Mog mastered a new dance. His special ability is that he dances. And Locke's special ability is that he steals, being a thief. It's not a 100% thing, but it does work occasionally. You can always get items to make it work better later. So you just go through. You don't really need to do anything fancy, just attack them normally. And there's about 5 or 6 of these fights. So yeah, you just go through. And you see Mog is a pretty important Moogle. There's a reason for that, which I'll get into later. And you got these guys over here. Now, if you die here, if one of your parties perishes here, they just get sent back to next to Terra with 1 HP each, so you have a chance to heal them and keep trying. The only way to get a total game over in this situation is to let any of them touch Terra. We got one there. And up. Mug, no! And there he goes. Just laying on the ground. And here's the last one. Now, in the early game, the main thing that you can steal from enemies are potions, which isn't a bad thing, because being able to heal 50 HP in one shot is good, especially since not everybody has access to a cure spell. Now that they're all done, I switch to Mog, and one important thing to do with Mog, take his equipment away. He doesn't need it. He's not going to be directly attacking, and you can save that equipment for someone else later. And I just make sure everybody's topped off in their HP, because it's time to fight the boss of the caverns, this guard. And as soon as Mog pops up, we dance. And why do we dance? Because of that. See ya. Certain enemies have a resistance to one-hit death moves. This guy does not. So if he randomly activates the pitfall trap, that's it, the fight's over. When he dances, what he does is random. There's like 2 or 3 attacks that are randomly picked, and sometimes when he dances he can fall flat on his face and nothing happens. So now that Terra is safe, it's time to leave. So I just head through the mines here. They talk, get to know each other a little bit better, since they're going to be traveling together. And so she finally wakes up, and they have a little chat. And he freaks out that she has amnesia. There is a reason for that, but we'll get into that later. And he pledges to keep her safe no matter what. Which you'll find out is that's something he does. He's very overprotective of women who are under his care, basically. And of course, she doesn't get it, because you'll find out later that She doesn't really feel any emotions right now. She got the slave crown taken off, and she doesn't really have her memory, so she's just kind of like, just there. She's not really she's participating, but she's not really there, if you know what I mean. So this is basically where you learn what you need to know for the game, the basics, and also some advanced stuff. So I go through here just for completion's sake. And I mean, in case nobody's ever played a role-playing game before. Which I'm sure you all have, but who knows, maybe since I'm playing a game that's pretty popular, other people will watch this and they might not know. And they do teach you some pretty important stuff. Now, in this version of the game, you don't need the sprint shoes in order to run faster. You can just hold the B button down and run around. But if you have the sprint shoes on and you run with B, you'll run 4 times faster than you normally would walk. So it really lets you cover ground quickly. And of course, staying at an inn heals you completely. And that tells you the basic buttons right there. And this one tells you something that is important. When you buy weapons and armor, make sure you buy stuff that is stronger. I mean, it goes without saying, but again, if you've never played a role-playing game before, you might not know. So they show you symbols in order to show that, hey, this item's stronger and this person can equip it. And when you have a whole lot of characters that you have to handle, it helps a lot to see who can equip what and what makes specific people stronger. And this is important. Sometimes when you open a treasure chest, there's going to be a fight inside. But we're going to burn it. They have a little fire scarecrow. And you get experience points for that. They jump up and down, happy that they set this poor dog on fire. And I talked to that guy, but he's the guy who was standing outside, so he just says the same stuff over again. And he tells you about how to make the game wait, so you're not constantly getting attacked when you're trying to pick something. And these guys go over stuff that happens during a fight. So to signify that you have certain spells on you, you'll change into different colors, good and bad. And slow, that happened earlier when we were fighting Ymir. And he just basically tells you, hey, numbers are going to pop up. White are damage, green is recovery. Which is also good to know because sometimes you might be fighting, say, a lightning creature, and if you throw a lightning spell on it, and you see that the numbers are green, it lets you know that you're actually healing the monster and not attacking it. So that is important stuff to know. And also how to pass turns, how to run, because sometimes you're going to need to do that. And that's also important to know, because if you have someone who you're mainly going to have use magic, throw them in the back row. And you'll find there are certain battles that you can't run away from, but it'll let you know. It'll just say, oh, can't run away, so you're not sitting there holding the L and R buttons. And I come in here anyway, just to show some extra stuff. This is like stuff that talks about later in the game, but it's okay. It's not really spoiling anything, it's just letting you know that these things are out there. And like I said before, confused is the worst status effect in this game. Because if you have someone who has a high strength and they're attacking your party, they could start one-shotting characters. And early in the game, it's difficult to bring characters back to life once they've been killed. You need a special item in order to do it. Or you need to stay in a tent. And yeah, some of this stuff is stuff that's not going to be until way later in the game. And yes, that also is a very good tactic to know if you're fighting undead. Like if you're fighting undead and your spells don't work, try a cure spell. You might kill it in one shot. And it's also good to come here so you can get some of these weapons. I mean, not weapons, items. You don't get to buy new weapons for a while yet. And so, with that all done, we head out into the open world. Here's the Mode 7 world map. And we're gonna save, just to be on the safe side. And we're heading towards, like the old man said, we're heading towards Figaro Castle. And we're waylaid by this, well, we were waylaid by that bunny, but that didn't last too long. And basically on the world map, you can, like when you're in a cave, you can get ambushed at any time by a random battle. And we're just going to use fire on these guys. Yep, there we go. That's it. Okay, we're getting towards the end of the episode. It'll be in a few minutes. We're going to meet one more character, and then we're going to pause here. No, this is Figaro Castle, with some fantastic music, like everything else in this game. And you can't do anything until you talk to the king first, so we're gonna run up to meet him. And here he is. So he kind of checks her out, turns his back, and she's like, "Hey, what the hell's your problem?" And he says, "Oh yeah, I probably shouldn't do that." And that's pretty much his character right there. And this is Edgar. And he's one of the best characters in the game. He is one of the characters that I will be taking with me as much as possible, but we'll get into that later. Those two have a nodding contest, and then they head off. So, he says that, hey, you know, Figaro and the Empire are allies, so you can relax here, you can chill out, nothing's gonna happen. And she's wondering why everybody's helping her. And he tries to get his game on. And he fails miserably. Okay, that's the end of part 1. I hope you'll join me for what is probably going to be several months of this game. I hope I make it entertaining for you, and I hope you enjoy it. Have a good night.